in Vermont, the only legal mechanism that we have as prosecutors to get people to show up in court is cash bail. And it's an important tool. I think it's not okay for local prosecutors to take a cue from the Trump administration and start politicizing our own charging decisions. Like, that's not okay.
I thought I had to go back to make sure I didn't hallucinate it, and I didn't. But it was really weird. It was really weird.
I saw a picture you sent to me, but it could be doctored, so I need to independently verify that was real.
It is real. It's so real.
Hello, Vermont. I'm Andy Julo.
And I'm Joanna Grossman.
And this is There's No Way in Creemee.
Vermont politics, culture, and beyond.
Thanks for joining us.
Hello, and welcome to There's No Way in Creemee. How you doing today, Andy?
I'm doing really great.
Excellent.
Today.
Good.
Yes, it's a beautiful day.
Yeah, we just had our production meeting outside. Oh, no, it was more of a campaign meeting, actually.
Yeah, we have that later.
Yes.
Hopefully also outside.
Yes.
Yeah, summer in Burlington is okay.
Yeah, it's pretty, right?
Yeah, we got to work and on a picnic table and next to a cement truck dumping a load of cement. Next to a backhoe digging up the road in front of it. Yeah. They would back up simultaneously and do these like offsetting beep, 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 beep sounds. And it was paradise, really.
What I think is funny is that I don't hear any of that. Like, it is not part of my consciousness. Like, I just really don't notice it.
Yeah, I have like a base stress level when I'm in an urban area. Like, it's not my natural environment, whereas it's the opposite for you. Yeah. Like, you go to New York City to relax.
That's actually true.
I go to New York City and I'm like, what's that person doing? Put that down. Right. This base level of paranoia.
Yeah. So I've had some really interesting candidate experiences this past few weeks.
And I think I've been there for
like all of them.
Most of them.
Yeah.
I think maybe the first one.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Okay. You're right. Pretty much all of them.
This was tragic. So, I have worked for 2 different state agencies. I worked for ANR, Agency of Natural Resources, and I worked for Agency of Ag, and loved those places. And this week I saw the VSEA endorsements rolling out, and I was like, I want one of those, and I just kind of felt like, what happened? They didn't reach out. And then I checked my spam folder, and they had reached out. Mm-hmm. And, it was a really tight turnaround. It was only 3 days to fill it out, but I did miss the candidate questionnaire. And I mean, I just want people to know we get so many candidate questionnaires. Like, they're nonstop. And that's like part of the candidate experience. And it's funny, some people just don't fill them out, but like, I'm trying to do every one, and I treat them like a school assignment. I treat them like really seriously. And I was so sad that I missed this one. And I guess that's just a part of candidate life. You can't do it all. You can't get it all right. But it was sad. And it was just like, I was like, oh, I bet a lot of people don't know that that's a little piece of the puzzle.
I missed a primary endorsement. I had filled out the sheet, but then I missed the email that I had gotten the endorsement. And there aren't that many endorsements in that kind of race.
Yeah.
And it was a good one.
Yeah.
And I never got to leverage it until the general. And they said, oh, yeah, we supported you in the primary too, right? And I was like, oh, no. And I went back and looked at my email. It's hard because you often typically set up an email specifically for your candidate.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's new to you and you haven't got the settings quite right. But yeah, you start a new account. All those settings are fresh. You have to give the Secretary of State an email that gets publicized, and all of these people who are hitting you up for, texting services and email services.
Oh my God, the vendors, chronic.
Yeah, they just start hammering this email.
Yeah.
And so you think it's going to be a nice, clean start. It's not. Everybody's got it and is hitting you up with sales pitches.
Yeah.
And in the middle of all that is stuff that you actually need to be paying attention to. And it's coming from large organizations, and it's a questionnaire, and it looks an awful lot like the sales pitches, and it is easy to let one flip by.
Or like their regular newsletters, and you can, since you get 50 trillion of those a day, you can't read all of those either. Yep. And then bigger campaigns and incumbents, a lot of resources and staff, and if they're running together, longer. They've got 3 times the depth. And yeah, I mean, and actually including, this one, incumbents sometimes don't have to fill out the form, right? Only the challengers do.
Yes, I believe that was the case with this one.
That was the case with VSEI.
And
it was
a really short turnaround too.
I think it was just like 3 or 4 days. And I
think it went out Friday evening and it was due Monday at noon.
Oh, and we were on doors like almost that entire time.
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard. It is really hard to be a challenger. It's like there's just all these little things that make it harder. And some of that is the same for every candidate, but some of it is harder when you're a challenger and you're trying to fund a campaign. And yeah, so I still feel sad about that, but you can't win them all.
That's right.
Yeah. Moving forward.
If you're the Mets, you don't win any of them.
I know. Oh my God. We've had a couple wins this week.
Yeah, they put together like 3 or 4 games in a row where you think, all right, there's still time.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll turn this around. And then they do something like go to Cincinnati and get blown out 2 games in a row.
All I need is for someone else to validate that they saw the animated pizza slice come up at the last Soto at bat, because I thought I had to go back to make sure I didn't hallucinate it, and I didn't. But it was really weird. It was really weird.
I saw a picture you sent to me, but it could be doctored, so I need to independently verify that was real.
It is real. It's so real. We met so many amazing people on doors in the past few weeks, and I feel like if I ever wrote a book about this campaign, it would be just like memoirs of doors and like these extraordinary people that I've met. And we recently met, I've talked to so many parents with kids with special needs and like in the special ed programs. And that's been really, really helpful to understand like their experiences in their lives. And we met this really sweet mom who she had this amazing kids, and she was coding her own app to help other special ed families find resources.
Yeah.
How awesome is that?
It's awesome. They're such a community. We met another parent that was driving their kid to New Hampshire for special services. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. But that's what they've got to do for their child, and they're going to do it.
Yeah. Same day, I think.
It was, believe it or not.
Oh my God.
It was a long day.
This is, we met the most amazing. This was one of my favorite door experiences so far, that we were in my district, that the part of my district that was closest to the planned Amazon site. And that wasn't in my district. So I don't hear about that a ton on doors, but we were up there and we were talking to a voter, and he didn't know who I was, and he was saying, and we really shouldn't have fought the Amazon, facility. And he's like, and he was getting very specific, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I really need to tell him it was me. And like, he didn't know, and probably wouldn't have known unless he really did like a Google search on me, I don't think. But I just felt like it's really more important to be honest with this person than to win their vote. And I decided to tell him, I was like, I ran that campaign, and this is why, and we were trying to look out for local businesses. And he heard that, and he kind of countered me on a few points, and we had a really great back and forth. And he was so respectful.
He was.
He really was.
Yeah.
And he didn't agree with it.
Yep.
But we really had a nice dialogue and shook hands at the end. And I kind of felt like, okay, this is part of the work, is just kind of like building the relationships, and that was a really cool experience. What was really amazing, right, was so we're walking down the neighborhood and get absolutely poured on.
Yeah.
And we're walking back through, and the same guy is walking down his driveway with an umbrella for us.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It was so sweet. And he was like, you can leave it at the bookstore for me.
Yes, that's
and
right.
I was like,
yeah.
Oh, like that is just humanity at its finest.
People.
They're
all right sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was cool. That was really cool. So we've met some really extraordinary people on doors. Okay, so last week, I'm trying to get my head around this. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a hard pivot, right?
It's a hard pivot. Yeah. A lot of boards. Okay, you called me out last week because I used the term Policy governance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which many people may be familiar with, but if you haven't been on a board, you may not know the term.
So this is a Glossary of Shame segment.
Yes, I threw a flag on the field.
Yeah, you did. And I'm going to explain policy governance. And this does tie back to our previous topic a little bit. So in Jewish culture and tradition, the way we do our services is we split the Torah into 52 parts, every weekly, and every week there's a weekly Torah portion. And so that's the part that you're required to read and discuss in synagogue that week is the weekly Torah portion.
Mm-hmm.
Policy governance has a little bit of that in it. Not the Torah part, but the weekly review. So a policy governance board is a board that has come up with a set of policies and ends that the board is going to stick by. And part of that is usually a separation from the management of the organization itself. And then every month, the board does this little policy monitoring thing, which I always reminded me of the monthly Torah portion.
Yes.
So, or the weekly Torah portion, monthly part of, and you're going to review that and make sure you're still in alignment with that, and it still makes sense to the board. If you're a policy governance board, your rules are kind of specific and spelled out, and you're accountable to the rest of the board if you screw them up. And if you're not a policy governance board, you have to be figuring that out on the fly all the time, which is how most boards are.
Yeah, that's what we did. And Megan and I kind of talked about being overzealous and eager when we come on. You have all this energy and you read this stuff about this article and these great things. Hey, have we tried that here? And you bring that to the board meeting. And yeah, that's not really great. You're not supposed to do that. And policy governance does write that out of the process. You're not.
Yeah, it's meant to tamp down your enthusiasm.
It is. It curbs your enthusiasm.
That's right.
Yeah, it's the Larry David of governance policy.
It is. It's hard to get used to. Some people really don't like it. We did a really great interview this week.
This is a race we thought was interesting.
And everyone's
Chittenden County State's Attorney.
I also felt like we were giving the people what they wanted. A lot of people were asking about this race.
Yes, and we're very susceptible to being told what to do.
Yeah, well, we're people pleasers a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah. And but it is an important race affecting Chittenden County. And so we interviewed both of the state's attorney candidates.
Bram Kranichfeld is up first.
Yep.
And then next week we will have Sarah George.
Yep. And they were both great. We really hope you enjoy those interviews. Hello and welcome to There's No A in Creemee. Bram Kranichfeld, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited. People are into this race. They've been asking for you, so I'm glad that we get to talk with you.
Thank you. Well, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me this morning.
Yay. Will you tell us a little about yourself? What's your story?
My story? Well, I have lived in Burlington for the last 20 years. I moved here from New York in 2006, and it was for a job that was only supposed to be a year, and I was fully intending to move back to New York, but I spent 2 weeks living in Burlington and decided I was never going to leave, and I never have. So I've been here, I've been in various places around Burlington. Right now we're living in the New North End. I've been married for about 15 years. I met my wife here in Burlington. I have 2 kids. I got a 12-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter. They both went to Integrated Arts Academy.
Oh, my kid went there too.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Nice. My brother used to teach there. And anyway, my son's at Hunt right now and my daughter's still at IAA. And what can I say? I love this community. I love Burlington. I love Chittenden County, and I've been here for a while.
Awesome.
So you live here, but you are currently state's attorney for Franklin County.
That is correct.
So you understand the role a little bit. Help us demystify that role a little bit. What is a state's attorney? What does it do?
Yeah, I've run into that question a lot on the campaign trail. I mean, I think that. Well, I'll just give you the whole story, and you guys can stop me when you feel like I'm rambling.
Okay.
The state's attorney in just about every other state in the country would be called the district attorney. So our job as state's attorney is to be the chief law enforcement officer in whatever county we're in. And the core of the job, the core responsibilities of the job are to enforce the criminal law and to protect the public. And, there's a whole lot of different hats the state's attorney can wear and I think should wear. I do strongly believe the state's attorney should leverage the system as much as possible to try to get people the help they need and to try to, meet people where they are and make sure that they're getting the services they need to prevent whatever behavior, is causing them to come into contact with the system. But the state's attorney really can't let go of those first two things, protecting the public and enforcing the law. It's incidentally, it's the same mission as the police. It's just that the state's attorney is kind of on the flip side of the same coin, so the police they investigate cases, they collect evidence, and then it's the state's attorney's job to take the case to court and to try to get the best outcome from the court in a criminal case. I don't know, there's 14 of us in Vermont. Vermont's interesting because the state's attorney role is actually created by the Vermont Constitution. So it's a constitutional role. And there is one state's attorney for every county in Vermont, and it's an elected position. So each county has its own state's attorney. And like I said, that state's attorney is, the chief law enforcement officer for that county.
Is there a one-to-one relationship between a state's attorney and a district attorney in another state, and Vermont just chose a different name, or are there key differences in the role?
I think yes and no. I think in most states that have district attorneys, let me back up.
Yeah.
The short answer is no. I mean, the job is the same. Like the responsibilities are the same for us as it is for a district attorney in, say, New York. Yeah. The big difference, and I deeply feel this difference because I used to be the executive director of the state's attorneys and sheriffs. So like it was such a conflict and a source of tension in my job as executive director. But the big difference is that in New York, for example, or California, the county district attorney doesn't just have managerial authority over their office. They also have control over their budget. Okay, so they have control over the money that comes in because those states have county budgets. Vermont does not. So the state's attorneys each have, authority over their own, like the managerial authority, policy authority over their office in their county. But all the money that funds our department comes through a central path through our executive director's office, who works for all of the state's attorneys. So the board, all 14 state's attorneys basically decide where, as a committee, decide where the resources are going to go. And anyway, I don't love that system. It's proven to be challenging, and it creates a whole lot of challenges for our department that don't just aren't present in a state like New York or California. But again, that's really getting into the weeds of like funding. On the basic question of, do we have the same job as a district attorney in New York? Yeah. Yes, the answer is yes. It's the same job.
Yeah, we live in the weeds, so that's
Yeah.
Sorry,
we're the nerd podcast for sure. I always feel like that's such a great example of like we need to do a whole episode just on like small state problems, the things that only happen to us because we're a tiny little state. Well, tell us, why are you running for state's attorney?
I'm running for state's attorney because I think that we can get better outcomes out of the criminal justice system in Chittenden County. Like I said, I've lived here for a long time. I've been a prosecutor for a long time. I was a deputy state's attorney in Chittenden County. I was the executive director of the state's attorney's sheriff's. I was the chief of the criminal division at the attorney general's office. I'm currently the Franklin County state's attorney. I've been doing this work for about 20 years, and I really strongly believe that we can get better outcomes out of our criminal justice system in Chittenden County. I strongly believe, as a state's attorney, that the state's attorney represents the community in court, and that means everyone in the community. So I think it's really important for the state's attorney to empathize with everyone in the community. And when you're asking yourself in every individual case, what does justice look like in this case? You really got to think about how it's affecting not just the people directly involved in the case, but the whole community. I I think that the state's attorney's office can and should address the drug crisis that we're having in our community right now. I think the state's attorney's office should use all the tools available to it to particularly to address drug traffickers who are fueling so much of the problems that we have in this county. And I also think that the state's attorney's office ought to live into what I think of as the ideal for the criminal justice system, which is that it ought to be an escalator and not a revolving door. You know, I 100% believe in all of the restorative justice programs that we've put into place, all the diversion programs we've put in place, all the treatment courts that we've put in place. I used to be the drug court prosecutor here in Chittenden, and I 100% know that those programs work when they're done correctly. But in order for them to be done correctly, there has to be some accountability in the mix for the participant not engaging or not showing up or not doing the work, right? So, and I also think that the state's attorney's office ought to be, transparent about its policies. I think it ought to work collaboratively with all the other stakeholders involved, especially the police, which I sort of alluded to earlier. And I think also this is something that gets muddied a lot in our conversations around criminal justice in this state. But I think it's incumbent on the state's attorney to be honest about what solutions can be found in the courtroom and what solutions you can't find in a courtroom, and that you've got to go to policymakers and to particularly the legislature for. So anyway, for all those reasons, I'm running for state's attorney in Chittenden County.
We've heard a lot about public safety over the last few years, and I'm sure you were hearing that as you campaign for this office. How do you approach public safety as a state's attorney? What would help resolve that problem here in Chittenden County?
I mean, I think one of the core functions of the state's attorney is to protect the public. And I think public safety is just baked right into the job description of the state's attorney. I mean, you're the chief law enforcement officer of the county. That's your job, you know. I guess I'd start by answering that question by just, again, for one thing, I would start using all of the tools available to the state's attorney to address the cases coming in the door. You know, one of the most fundamental problems I think that we have in this county is that people don't show up in court, right? So it's important to understand that criminal court's not like civil court. Like, you don't show up in civil court, you lose, right? You get a default judgment, right? You don't show up in criminal court, nothing happens. You know, you can't be convicted in absentia. You know, you have constitutional rights, right? Like we have the Constitution. You can't be convicted in absentia. You can't have witnesses testify against you when you're not there. You can't make decisions about how to resolve your case, you know? So long story short, if people don't show up, nothing happens. And then we have to wait until we get the person in a court. In Vermont, the only legal mechanism that we have as prosecutors to get people to show up in court is cash bail. And it's an important tool. You know, I will be the first to admit that there are problems with cash bail as a mechanism. It disproportionately affects under-resourced people, particularly, right? I mean, you know, as you can imagine, if you're unhoused and you have even like $200 bail set, like, you're probably going to end up detained, right? So there might be better regimes to put in place to get people into court than cash bail. And actually, some states have done this. Like Illinois actually replaced its cash bail regime with a pretty heavy-duty condition of release regime. So it is possible, but the key word there is replace, right? Because there's got to be some way to get people into court, or the whole system doesn't work, right? If there's no consequences for not showing up in court, there's no consequences, period, for any of it. And the court and the system can't address criminal behavior in a timely way, or sometimes at all. And so I guess that's a long way of saying, if we're going to replace bail with something else, the responsible thing to do it would be to do it through the legislature. And come up with a new regime. I think it's irresponsible for the state's attorney to unilaterally just drop it out of the equation. So So that's a very long way of saying one way to answer your question is I would use one of the most important tools available to state's attorneys to make sure that the system was functioning properly. I could answer that a lot. There's a whole lot more from that, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that. So we're seeing a lot of clashes between ICE and our citizens here in Vermont, as well as all over the country. And, we're really seeing that undermine Americans' trust in their government. And we're starting to see that happening here in Vermont. And I'm curious if you can share with us what role the state's attorney plays in that, could play in that, what you'd like to see play in that.
Sure. I mean, I'm with you. Like ICE is clearly demonstrated throughout the country and now in Vermont that it is more interested in dividing our communities against each other and invoking or promoting violence than it is in protecting us or enforcing the law or doing and to prove that, I think you just got to notice the fact that I think that the federal government deported more people under Obama than it has under Donald Trump, and you never heard about like violent interactions and all the insanity that we're hearing about with ICE. So I just for the record, like I personally agree with every single sign I see that says ICE out. I think ICE should get out. I think we should dismantle the Department of Homeland Security. I mean, when it got put into place in the first place, after 9/11, it was like, what are we doing? Like, we don't need this. We had perfectly good agencies to do what this agency is now doing. Anyway, so yeah, ICE is probably the most visible example of how the federal government in general seems to have more or less abandoned or started to abandon the tenets of our democracy. And I think one of the most acute ways, one of the things that I find to be the most offensive about the current administration is the way that the Department of Justice has politicized prosecution and made their charging decisions on the federal level political and about partisanship. I mean, for example, if you're for Donald Trump, you get a pardon, even if you break into the Capitol building and assault police officers, right? But if you're against Trump, if you're protesting ICE, for example, you get the National Guard called out on you, and it's really very much like the federal government's gotten to a place of like, okay, there's no law for us, like we're basically lawless, but there's plenty of law for you guys, if you're against us. As far as like, I guess this is a long way of getting around to I think you had alluded to this coming to Vermont, and I assume you're talking about the March 11th protests in South Burlington. I think that's a great example of all of these forces kind of coming together. And, if there's a role, first of all, I want to say as a state's attorney that I would not ever pursue charges against peaceful, nonviolent protesters. If you're just expressing yourself by, placing your body in a place that it's not supposed to be, that's what's the point of pursuing criminal charges against you? If it's violent, I think that's sort of a harder case to address as a state's attorney. I also think it's really important to remember that we have the ability to charge police officers if they're acting criminally. So if an ICE agent or somebody in law enforcement crosses the line into criminal behavior, the state's attorneys have the ability to bring charges. It's less clear on federal agents because of the supremacy clause, as I've come to learn, but we can still try. All of that said, I think it's not okay for local prosecutors to take a cue from the Trump administration and start politicizing our own charging decisions. Like, that's not okay, you know? And as much as I agree with the ICE protesters, you know, I think if I were going to like take my political agreement into account when I'm making a charging decision on something, it would make it, first of all, it would be doing the exact same thing we're complaining about the Department of Justice doing. And it would make it impossible to have any credibility as a prosecutor when there was a protest on the other side of things. You know, so for example, if you're not gonna if you're gonna say I'm gonna ignore violent crimes happening because I happen to agree with the protesters or the people who are, you know, engaging in it, how do you distinguish that from, I don't know, a year from now when there might be a violent protest against Planned Parenthood and somebody's, you know, throwing Yeti bottles at somebody trying to get health care. You know what I mean? It's like, so I just think once criminal prosecutors start politicizing their charging decisions, as they have done on the federal level, we have left democracy behind us. You know, I really think it's that serious. Like, there's no, that we have abandoned, we've left rule of law at that point, you know, and we've moved into, you know, am I in your team or not? Because if we're on the same team, then the rule doesn't apply to you. And if we're not, then sorry, you know. Anyway, I could have probably said that a lot more clearly and in many fewer words that I just did, but that's kind of how I feel about the situation.
It's an intense situation, and sometimes those deserve a lot of words. So yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So Chittenden County is a really big place. It's very diverse. I mean, we think of Burlington as you know, the center of Chittenden County, but there are rural parts of Chittenden County as well. As you're going around, you're campaigning, are you hearing different needs in different parts of the county, or is it all pretty much, is there a central theme?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I think, you know, across the county, I think there is a central theme of people don't feel as safe as they did 9 years ago. Yeah. I hear that a lot. I think it's the flavor of that changes depending on where you're at. You know, for those of us who live in Burlington, it's like a very, very acute issue. For people further out, you know, you got to remember, many, if not most of the people that live out in the surrounding towns work here or come here for some reason on a regular basis. And so, you know, depending on their frequenting of Burlington, the safety issue is more or less acute, you know. But even the people who never come to Burlington and are you know, in the really outer towns will say things like, you know, I don't come to Burlington anymore. You know, I don't feel safe there. I
hear it on doors all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's heartbreaking. You know, it's really, really heartbreaking. And I think, you know, this is also a conversation that comes up. Like, even if the behavior and the stuff that's happening in Burlington is not directly affecting someone, it's probably indirectly affecting you. You know, because it is affecting it's affecting the kind of public life that we used to have in this town. It's affecting businesses. It's affecting a lot of the things that people used to just assume were part of the social fabric here, you know, and so even for people who are way out of Burlington, hardly ever come here, it is affecting them. And anyway. So yeah, that's it's the safety feeling that really is the common theme and a strong theme throughout the whole county.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know if you know this, my day job is for Phoenix Books. And
I did know that.
Yeah. So we have a store, of course, right on Church Street, and so we're really impacted, and we also are by nature a very, you know, compassionate business and trying to find our way through these public safety challenges. So I really appreciate everything you just said. And I mean, I can validate, like, when I hear, like you, I'm talking to voters across the county, and people do often say, like, oh, well, I don't come to Burlington anymore. And I'm like, give us a try. But one of the things that does seem to have made a little bit of a pivot is this accountability court dealing with the backlog of cases. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about if you feel like that's a long-term solution, if, how that all lands with you, that policy.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's been so much discussion about accountability court. I mean, here's how I feel about accountability court. I have another word for accountability court. It's called court. And, from the very beginning of this, I've been, from the minute it was announced. And by the way, let me just say, I am, as a resident of Chittenden County and of Burlington, very grateful to the governor for lending us the resources for accountability court, for initiating accountability court, and for and I have nothing but respect for the people involved in the accountability court. I mean, Zach Waite was the prosecutor for it, and Judge Martin Maley was the judge. And I have nothing but respect for them, and I'm very grateful for accountability court because I think it did good work, and I'm glad that they did it. That said, from the beginning, I have asked myself, what is it that Zach Waite in accountability court could do that the existing, 9 or 10 prosecutors that we already have in Chittenden County could not do? And the only answer I could come up with is that Zach Waite could ask for bail, because he didn't work for the Chittenden County State's Attorney. He worked for the governor, right? So, and as a proof point of that, the accountability court, during the time it existed, and by the way, it stopped in February, right? I think it was from September of last year to February of this year is when it was going. In that time, the accountability court cleared something around 700 cases, right? In the same exact time frame in Franklin County, we cleared 442 cases.
Oh, wow.
Without an accountability court, right? So it's hard for me. Like, again, I'm grateful for the accountability court, but it really feels like a solution that was provided by the governor to a problem that was generated by the policies of the Chittenden County State's Attorney's Office, of not ever asking for cash bail. And I've looked at a few of the cases that were in accountability court, and they bear it out. It's like it's people who are picking up a whole bunch of different crimes over the course of, sometimes like upwards of 25 different dockets, and they just were never showing up. The court was taking making some attempts to try to get them in, but they were just not showing up in court and continuing to commit crimes. And then accountability court pops up, and suddenly now they're there, and they address all their cases, and their cases get done, right? So I don't know. I think it was again, I'm grateful for the effort. I think it was a good effort. I'm not sure how useful something like accountability court would be in any county outside of Chittenden County.
Fair enough. Yeah. Thanks for explaining that. Andy, I think that you get the last question.
I do. We appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Yeah.
And our final question for you is, when you go to a Creemee stand in Vermont, what do you order?
Honestly, if I'm being honest, I almost always get a maple creamy, but if I'm feeling like a change, I'll get a milkshake or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on where we go. My kids are obsessed with Burlington Bay and the bagel up in the north end. So so we go there a lot for creamies.
And when you get a maple creamy, do you get sprinkles on it?
I never ever get anything on it ever. I don't want anything on it. It's
score one for Andy.
Purity of the Creemee is enough.
Yeah.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in and talking with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you, and thanks for your time this morning.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode.
Thank you all for listening.
Follow us between episodes for the latest updates on our socials at There's No A in Creemee on Instagram, Substack, and Blue Sky.
And catch us on our next episode of There's No A in Creemee, Vermont Politics, Culture, and Beyond in Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Little background noise happening.
Little background noise.
Yeah, maybe they can't hear it. Oh, wow. The building might be taking off.
What is that?
I don't know.
Okay.
We're fine.
Yes.